So last week, I saw the movie The Lobster for the first time. And I'm really excited to analyze this because one, we get to kind of have this dating discussion, which is kind of fun. And two, I found this movie to be endlessly metaphorical, like almost in every single scene of this movie. So why don't we just get started because we have a lot to talk about. Welcome to Classic Explained, episode 25, The Lobster. So to break this movie down, we're going to use two very big themes. One, pressure of partnership, where we'll discuss the hotel program, the awkward dialogue, the hunting sessions, the woman shooting the donkey in the very first scene, and the meaning of the title of the film. And two, untrue love, where we'll discuss the hunting song, John faking his nosebleeds, the heartless woman's death, the loner community, the poster art for the film, and the ending at the diner, and a lot more. And if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up and a comment, it helps so much. And if you want to see more of these, please make sure to subscribe as well. Let's get started. Theme number one, pressure of partnership. The story of this film begins on a pretty unfortunate note. Our main character, David, is finding out that his wife of over 12 years has suddenly found someone else that she loves more than him. He asks if the man wears glasses like he does, and she says yes. And at first, such a question sounds like the absolute last thing you would ask when you find out that your wife now loves somebody else instead of you. But as you watch the film more and more, you come to realize that the world that these characters live in is not the exact same world that we live in. It has a few different rules and laws and customs, and I want to break that all down. In this world, it is illegal to be single. If you're single, you are sent to this program at this hotel for 45 days. The 45-day program is set up for you to find a mate. And if after the 45 days you have not met a romantic partner, you will be surgically turned into an animal of your choice and set back out into the world. And any single people who don't want to find a partner and don't want to be turned into an animal have to flee society and join a community of single fugitives called loners that live in the forest. That's the societal structure of this world in this film, and I'll get into more and more detail about it as we go through the story. But ultimately, this societal structure and culture that exists in this film is a critique of our culture and society that we have today. It's specifically criticizing the pressure that we put on each other and ourselves and the shame we feel for simply being single. And here is where I draw the major parallels between the film's world and our world. You can divide the single people in this world into three groups: hotel guests, animals, and loners. Let's start with the hotel guests. The hotel guests in this world run parallel with young singles in our world. The 45 days set by the program for singles is like the window of time in our world that it's okay for you to still be single and still be looking for a partner. It's essentially like being single in your 20s in our world. And moving on to the animals. Being turned into an animal is like remaining single and still looking for a partner as you go through your 30s and middle age and so on. Like an animal, we often see ourselves as of lesser value or disappointing when compared with our peers. I know single people even in their late 20s and early 30s that lie about being in a committed relationship. It's not that uncommon because of all of the societal pressure. And it's not that uncommon for immediate and extended family to be disappointed in you because you're a 35-year-old single woman or a 33-year-old single man that just can't seem to find that special person yet. Like an animal, especially as you get older, your life just doesn't feel like it has the order and structure that the majority appear to have. And it may feel a little bit embarrassing. The image of the animal reflects the shame one feels for being unmarried. And now moving on to the loners. Being a loner is like being so into your own life and independence and freedom and personal journey that you just don't make it a priority to find a long-term partner, even as you get older. These people, because of their lifestyle, can often be seen as too eccentric or too disorderly or too difficult to comprehend by the majority, so they often have no choice but to embrace their individualism even further and feel more and more separated. And with so many parallels between this world and our world, the filmmaker seems to be putting up this hyperbolic, exaggerated mirror for us to look into. So we as viewers can reflect and realize how bizarre and ridiculous we can be sometimes. Why do we need to put so much pressure on ourselves and each other? We shouldn't need to at all. The delivery of the dialogue in this movie is incredibly bizarre as well, as standard and robotic as it can be. And the musical score is so ominous and eerie. This all creates this atmosphere of absurdity and fear, which of course reflects upon us. This atmosphere captures the rigidity of our customs and fearful culture around romantic relationships that shouldn't actually be taken so seriously. It's satirizing the way we live by these crazy, unspoken rules. And when we take a moment to reflect on the things that we say in everyday life when talking about dating and relationships, we might just sound just as odd as the people do in this movie. The program stresses on similarities between partners, believing couples have more promising futures if each partner has a matching, defining characteristic. So, for example, mine would be my tiny ears, so I would likely have a long-lasting relationship with a girl who also had little ears. This explains why David asked his wife if her new lover wears glasses. She also certainly wears glasses, and that is what paired her up with David in the first place. This whole matching characteristic concept, of course, parallels our interest in finding out what we have in common when dating one another. Dating apps often categorize us based on our interests, our hobbies, our careers. But can a dating app understand your sense of humor, your values, your EQ, your insecurities, your character? These subtler things are actually much more telling of whether a relationship will succeed or fail. Also, if you're single at this hotel and you find a partner within the 45 days, you go through a few weeks of trial togetherness. And if during this trial, the two of you start fighting and arguing, the program assigns you a child for the two of you to take care of. This, of course, speaks to how kids can keep couples together because each partner in the relationship is a lot less flexible in many ways. The consequences that come with splitting up or filing for divorce socially and economically may not be worth it to both individuals in the relationship. One moment that's really interesting is when David is registering for the program and the receptionist asks about his sexuality. David has had hetero and homosexual experiences, but has trouble determining which box to be categorized into to enter the program. I think this moment briefly highlights the difficulty of understanding your own sexuality when you're not exactly sure where you fall and have just started exploring romantic relationships. There's also this interesting aspect to the film where the guests have hunting sessions where they tranquilize and capture loners in the forest. For every loner you catch and bring back to the hotel, you get one extra day added to your 45-day stay at the hotel. This gives you some extra time to find a partner. And this to me might have been the most interesting aspect of the movie because it speaks to what I think is one of the most interesting things in our world when it comes to romantic relationships. I think it means the more you accomplish and the more successful you are in life, the more society is accepting of you being single. And it widens your window of time to stay single. To give an example, I'm just gonna pull a random single celebrity out of the wind. Drake. Drake is single and loves to meet different women and go to nightclubs and party. And Drake is 37 years old. He's almost 40. But society doesn't really look down on him for that at all, really. It's actually more celebrated for him. But if I was 37 and was single and partying like Drake, everyone that I know would be like, what the hell are you doing, man? And I'm not saying I want to do that at 37, but I just find that really fascinating. And I really hope that was the intention of the film with that aspect. We also see at the very beginning of the movie, a woman drive up to a field of donkeys and shoot one of them. To me, this donkey was likely an unfaithful partner of hers who broke her heart. I'm assuming she has now found someone new, but still feels hurt and vindictive enough to find this partner in animal form and kill them. While it is the first scene and is meant to hook us in as viewers, I do think it does establish the vulnerability of the unmarried individual versus the married individual, which is the central subject of the movie. I think the beginning of the film is the perfect place to put that scene. When David is asked what animal he would like to be turned into if he doesn't find a partner, he says, a lobster, because lobsters live for over 100 years, are blue-blooded like aristocrats, and stay fertile all their lives. I also like the sea very much. This idea of the lobster represents the ideal outcome of living out a philosophy of individualism. David's idea of a lobster signifies living long, achieving social and financial success, staying sexually active, and exploring wherever and whenever one pleases. Kind of reminds me of a bachelor I just spoke about a few minutes earlier. But is this lifestyle of the individualistic lobster as fulfilling and satisfying as it may seem? The rest of the film dives deeply into that question, which we'll also dive deeply into in theme number 2, untrue love. During the first hunt, we hear the song Apo Meza Pantamenos by Dene Strategopoulou, and that Greek song title directly translates to Dead Inside. And when I also translate the song's lyrics, I learned that the song is about being alive in reality, but feeling completely dead inside, because one's lover has left them and found someone they love more. The lyrics of this song, of course, relate perfectly to David's current circumstances, and even more importantly, the major theme of the hellishness of loneliness. David's friend John becomes so desperate for romance that he pretends to have sudden nosebleeds like one of the single women actually does. She and he end up together, but their partnership is built on a lie. John is only injuring himself for his nose to bleed every now and then. And when David confronts John about this, John asks him probably the biggest question of the entire film. What's worse, to die of cold and hunger in the woods? To become an animal that will be killed and eaten by some bigger animal? Or to have a nosebleed from time to time? Which ultimately means, in our world's language, what's worse, to be single and miserable for the rest of your life? To live on desperately looking for a healthy relationship? Or to be in a relationship that may be built on a little superficiality? David answers, to become an animal that will be eaten by some other animal. Meaning, nothing is worse than never finding love. This philosophy ties in with another song in the film, Something's Gotten a Hold of My Heart by Gene Pitney, that we see the hotel managers performing at one of the mixers. The song is about being separated from some other journey you were on because now you have found a lover. And you actually don't mind at all that you abandoned your old endeavors because love just feels so good. So after speaking with John, David adopts this philosophy and finds a woman he can pretend to match characteristics with. He soon meets the heartless woman and pretends he is also heartless. Things work at first, but when they enter their couple trial phase, the woman notices he's lying and she kills his dog, his brother, as a test. David very evidently can't keep in the emotion, and she pulls him to the head office to turn him in for lying. But on their way there, David escapes and works with the maid to capture the woman and turn her into an animal. Quick side note, the maid of course helped him because she was secretly working with the loners, which we'll talk about very soon. David mentions that we will never find out what animal the heartless woman became. And we don't ever find out. And I think that's the film saying the heartless woman shouldn't become any animal. A life without feeling and emotional connection can't be found in even the most wild of creatures. Her kind is among not only the lowest of humanity, but also the lowest of life on Earth. And it reinforces this message that character is more important than social status, which includes relationship status, which of course is one of the biggest messages this film is trying to push forward through the film itself. So when David escapes the hotel, he joins the loners who have their own set of rules. They aren't allowed to express any kind of romance or sexual interest between one another. If they do, the punishments are pretty severe. As mentioned before, these people represent a deep-rooted philosophy of individualism. It's to a wild extreme. When loners are caught by hunters, they are turned into animals right away, which represents society's effort to reconform such individualists back into partnership and family life. And there seems to be this constant war between the loners and the hotel. The loners fight back by sneaking into the hotel and ruining partnerships, exposing their disingenuousness by revealing the lies that keep these couples together. The best example is when the hotel management couple are exposed. The husband betrays his wife as soon as the loners put his and her lives on the line. The loners reveal that the love between them isn't pure, but to them, it was better than being alone. And around this time in the movie, we learn that one of the loners was narrating this film the entire time, Rachel Weisz's character, which we see as she's writing these words in her journal. And they're based on the stories David has told her, and she and David eventually fall in love. Her narration from the very start of the film is pretty powerful because it creates this feeling that they were always meant to be together. Like she had a presence in his life even before she met him, and their paths were destined to converge. Even when you look at the poster art, you can see that each of the two characters is hugging this void silhouette of the other. Like once they meet, they will literally complete each other. And from this point on, I'm going to call Rachel Weisz's character Rachel for simplicity's sake, because her character actually doesn't have a name. And to add to that, I think the reason why so many of these characters don't actually get names is because we as the viewers, I think, are supposed to focus on what these characters represent rather than what they're supposed to be called. Anyway, unfortunately, the maid who is secretly working with the loners finds the journal and tells their leader. As punishment, the maid and the leader take Rachel to a laser eye clinic, where she thinks she's getting her nearsightedness corrected, but she's actually being blinded by the surgeon. David believed that Rachel's nearsightedness is the reason they were in love, because he is nearsighted as well. So when he finds out she is now blind, he can't find another defining characteristic they both have to match with one another. And of course, as you watch the film, you know the bond that drew them together and kept them together in such a dangerous environment was way more than their defining characteristics. That's pretty obvious at this point, but it is the main tie together of this film thematically. This moment is true love. David takes Rachel into the city for them to escape and be together, and he has a plan to find them a matching characteristic. He's going to blind himself. It's the ultimate example of the truest love versus the very most superficial love, all happening at one time because of one decision. It's hilariously ridiculous, but also incredibly touching. True love can still exist, no matter how irrational the culture around romance. As they sit at the diner, David gets his final look at Rachel and her smile, and he heads to the bathroom with a steak knife. Our final shot rests on Rachel as she waits for David's return. Rachel sits there, blind and speechless, capturing the darkness and silence of loneliness that maybe only our one true love can completely pull us out of. Alright, that's my analysis. Subscribe for weekly videos and please send me recommendations. And please let me know what you thought about The Lobster. I'd love to discuss. Thanks for watching. See you later.